Welcome to the HTML Part 2 topic video. We're going to learn about understand and use special characters in HTML. And that means how to put special characters in and which characters are reserved by HTML. We're going to understand and use images and figures, and especially understand some issues about image sizing in the web. Then we're going to take and survey some of HTML's advanced text structures. So let's get started. The readings, which you should read on images in HTML, read that completely. On advanced text formatting, take a look and see what's there. I'm going to go through and kind of do a quick overview of those things in there. If you need more details, this is a good place to get more details. References. What's the difference between readings and references? These are specific, either they have all the HTML entities, okay, it's reference material, okay, meaning that it's going to give you more information, or it's a good place to look up stuff, okay? For example, if we go to this page, what are we going to see? Emojis, Unicode emojis, but we haven't covered that yet. Yes, I know. Let's go. HTML entities in Unicode, okay? We saw that HTML uses the less than and greater than symbols as for setting up the elements and the tags, okay, the start tag and the end tag and such like that, okay. So how does HTML work with those when we want to use those themselves? How do we tell the difference? Okay, HTML has a simple method. HTML reserves 4 characters for its syntax. Okay, that means they can't appear in HTML. Okay, they can't appear in content in HTML. The ampersand, the less than sign. Okay, the ampersand is interpreted as the start of a special character, an entity or special character reference. The less than sign is beginning of a tag. The greater than sign is interpreted as the ending of a tag, and the straight double quote is interpreted as the beginning and end of an attribute's value. So those things we can't use in HTML content. Really? We can't use any quotes, and we can't have any less than or equal. How can we do this, Professor? Okay. There are HTML entities, and their format, meaning special things in HTML, and they have a format of ampersand, a bunch of stuff, semicolon. Okay. We can get the less than, greater than, ampersand, and double quotes with the character entities, less than, greater than, ampersand, and quote. Gee, can you demonstrate that, Professor? How could I demonstrate that? Let me go to, instead of messing up what I started there, let's go to, not there, there. Let's go to a Markdown file with a previewer. And let's try, what did we say? Ampersand, less than. So far, Markdown thinks these are just characters. Then I put the semicolon, and Markdown then realizes that it's an HTML entity and we're trying to do a less than. I go ampersand greater than. Markdown realizes I'm trying to do greater than. What about ampersand amp? Oh. So this is how we get around the fact that we have special characters that are reserved. How do we put those in HTML? This is how we put them in HTML. And finally, amp quote. Oops. What did I do? Quote without the E. And quote without the E. Gives me the straight quote. Okay, so that's what we mean. So to put those characters, these three characters, these four characters in our HTML, in our HTML text, we need to use these HTML entities instead. There's a bunch more that are officially available. Go visit the link, okay, and you'll see them all, okay. Lots of interesting characters and such like that, okay. The ones I particularly like are the copyright symbol, H-bar, Planck's constant, real numbers, and especially these funny looking dashes and such. We're going to do that in class. Okay, Unicode is a computing. What is Unicode? Unicode is a computing industry standard for the consistent encoding and representation and handling of text expressed in most of the world's writing systems. And I mean like 154 writing systems. And remember, the writing systems can support multiple languages. Okay, so basically, Unicode's purpose was to come up with a way to encode all written languages used in the world. Whether they made that or not, yeah, including some that are already dead languages too, or ancient languages, okay. Web browsers have supported Unicode, especially UTF-8, which is a particular type, and we talked about saying what the char set was in our meta information in the head for many years. What does that imply? We can use Unicode in our pages. Okay. So, a fair amount of emoji and other symbols are available in Unicode. Okay. So what you want to do is you go and get the hex value, put it in an HTML character entity like so. We get the hex value. Here we got 263. We go ampersand, hashtag X. Okay. So let's take a look at some of those. What I did was I put some. So ampersand, hashtag, or pound sign, X. So that's going to tell us we're going to use a Unicode hex character. Okay, and so now I have 253. That gives me this little teeny tiny smiley. Okay, this other one, ampersand, pound sign, X, 1F60E, gives me the cool smiley guy with the sunglasses. So if we go over here, okay, to the grinning face with one large and one small eye, and I go the hex character is 1F92A, 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 1F92A. Okay. We can put any type of cool emoji on our pages and such. Caveat. The user system must know how to try and have a character to show you for that. Must have a representation. Okay. So all these codes, there can be lots of legitimate codes. That doesn't mean on your user's computer that they have a font that can be used for rendering this thing. So you got to be a little careful. Okay. But when I ask you to give it a try, and I ask you to take a screenshot, you don't have to worry because the screenshot will show me. Okay. So we can add cool emojis. Okay. So in addition to those HTML character references, we got emojis. Okay. images and figures. Okay. We want to get images in here. We want to make a graphic web. Okay. We're going to use, for that, we're going to use the img tag, short for image. And half the time I mistakenly write out image and wonder why it doesn't work. Okay, img, we give it the source, which is a relative or absolute URL. Okay. It's got 3 famous attributes. We're going to use one of these, not 2 of them. The alt attribute is supposed to be a textual description of what the image would show. Okay, this is used where the image cannot be seen or displayed or downloaded. Okay, so it's very important for screen readers. Okay, for accessibility. The width and height attributes don't do what you think they might do. You might think that they size the image. They don't. Okay? If you have a 2000 by 3000 pixel image, setting width and height will not do anything useful for you. What they were for and still do use is they hold a placeholder for the image of the correct size before and while it's being downloaded, particularly if it's a slow net, because what would happen is there would be no sizing, and then the whole page would have to be re-laid out. This isn't as much an issue nowadays. Okay, I don't use these. Really, it hasn't come up that much. Okay, to scale the images, we're going to use CSS. Okay. Images are default inline content, and we're going to learn that we can change this using the display property. We can change them to block content. Okay. Cell phone image sizes. What's the deal here? Cell phone and many modern digital camera images are way too big for web work. They contain way too many pixels. Let's take a look. Okay. Here's me importing a raw cell phone image. Okay. It's huge. Okay. You can't even see what it's supposed to be. Okay. What it turns out to be is a picture of my wife feeding a wallaby. Okay. That's wonderful. How much space did I use? Okay, for that. Let's take a look. HTML examples. If we look at the raw cell phone image, it's 2.5 meg. Okay. Now that would be wonderful if somebody wanted that image in that kind of resolution. But let's say it's just a picture on a page, like I'm showing here. Okay. We bring in that 2.5 meg to get this image size. If I scale it before using an image program, what do I mean by that? Image programs like Urfran, View, GIMP, ImageMagick will rescale. They'll modify the image size. You tell them the pixel size you want. They'll scale it down. To get an image of that size, the scaled image, was only 348 kilobytes. Okay, almost a tenth smaller. Okay, and if I had tried to be actually as accurate as I really wanted, if I scaled it down to what I actually really did and used, it would have probably been about a tenth. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Let's take a look. So here's the raw image. And that's 2,322 pixels by 4,128 pixels. Big image. Okay. Now this one, it's the same image, but how did I do it? We're going to be learning in our box model. I set this one so its height would be 80% of the shown view window. Okay. or the viewport height, the view height. So that's why it gets bigger as I make my view area bigger. Okay. However, as we said, you're still bringing down 2.5 meg. Okay. Now here's the other version, which we see here. Just as good an image, as far as anybody can tell. Okay, but this is the scaled version. I scaled it to 700. Oops, 700 by 1244. We got a big reduction in size, and as far as anybody can see, it looks just as good. In fact, if we try and make it bigger, it keeps looking good. Okay. So raw cell phone images are great if you want to print out and make nice high quality prints. Okay. They're way too high resolution for web work, and they eat up lots of bandwidth. So the rule is scale them down. The figure element is a container, okay, for holding figures or of any type, okay, and is frequently used with a caption, okay. So what you just saw down here was me using a figure element with a bit of styling to help highlight it with the figure, the image, a figured caption, okay, one that gives me more things to style, and two, it gives me a nice block to work with. Okay, so let's just double check one more time to see what we were working with here. So we come down to the figure element. We see we put a border on it. We put some padding on it. Okay, we set a display property. Within the figure element, we've got the image element, which is the raw image. And then within that, sorry, not within that, within the figure element, we have a figure caption. Okay. Makes it very easy for folks to understand and a screen reader to figure out what's going on. Okay. Advanced text structures. Okay. So we learned basic paragraphs and headings, and then we learned the advanced structuring elements of HTML, things like articles, section, asides, etc. Okay. So what kind of things do we get here? Okay. We get things like description lists. What's the description list? Well, you can try it out. Let's go to, not there, but here. Okay. Remember, we can put HTML into our Markdown. Description list is a list that has description list. It has the title, description title, so here HTTP, and then the definition, description definition, DD, the hypertext transfer protocol, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so useful in specific context. You don't need to use it unless you have an application for it. Okay, block quotes. What do block quotes look like? Okay, so block quotes, you could cite where you got the information from. Okay, so that's good. So stuff like that. What does it look like? Doesn't look particularly different. Let's see what happens if I take that and throw it into and see how it gets rendered here. Oh. When I look at the visualization here, it looks different than the screenshot I showed you. Why is that? Oh, because how it shows up is a function of how it's being styled. Okay, so if I go to, I'm going to send this, I go to C stores. Okay, and I sent off my nice little emoji thingies. Okay, I come over here and look at block quotes. It doesn't put that little stuff on the side. What happens though if I add style, it's in a block quotes tag. So block quote. What if I say background color Alice blue? Oh, I can style the block quote any way I like. Let's see. What else might I do? I didn't properly terminate that guy. Okay, what else could I do? If I wanted to look like the other guys, I could go border. We haven't learned about this yet. Border, left, border, left, solid, black. That doesn't look quite right either. Maybe I want to add in then padding, left, 1M. And you can see how quickly you can make a nifty custom look for something like a block quote. Okay. The default here that was coming through as part of the rendering I added to the Markdown here didn't do anything particularly fancy. However, that doesn't mean you can't. Okay. That is up for us in styling. And by having something within a nice semantic element, like block quote, which tells us I am quoting something from where? From this Nobel Prize website, okay, that was saying who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2011, okay. I take this information, put it here, and then I add my own styling on top. Okay, send that message. Okay, so we're all learned now that we can send messages with nifty styling. We can add block quotes, etc. What else can we do? So that's fun. And once again, the reason why it looks so plain here is I just put in the whatever styling was the default when I did that, okay, which was just indented a little bit. Inline quotes. Seriously? The Q? What's that going to do? Well, what are we going to do? Let's find out. What about quotes? Aren't they supported already? This is my quote. Oh, now we're going to make this a little bigger so you can see. Okay, what's going on here? The styling that it got applied in this quote when I used the quote styling element actually went really fancy with the curved types of quotes rather than straight quotes. Once again, this is a browser default or is something that you choose to style. Okay, so you can actually style how quotes get done. Okay, aren't they supported already? Well, we saw these are straight quotes. So whoever set up the styling here for quotes went and used the fancy quote character. Takes a little bit of extra styling too. It's kind of neat how they do that. But we don't want to get too off track here. All right, inline quotes, advantages. Okay. Abbreviations. Abbreviations, you know, like HTML. Oh, so when I if I define something as an abbreviation and I go hover above it, I get a little pop-up that gives me the definition. Okay, but I have to do the work of providing that definition. Okay, so an abbreviation looks like the following. ABBR, that's the tag, and it takes a title. Okay, the title should be explaining what the abbreviation means. Professor, isn't that an acronym and not an abbreviation? They were going to have an acronym tag, but they decided just to go with one thing and have it used for both abbreviations and acronyms. Okay, so I'm not a expert on I'm not an expert on English or their history here. Let's copy and see what happens when we use this, because a screenshot is pretty useless. It doesn't show this thing in action. So let's go over to our C source. Okay, once again, why can't I do this? Because this takes and renders Markdown, but it's legit to put Markdown, put HTML in Markdown. So let's see if this works. Computers and telecommunications networking is full of abbreviations. I worked on standards for WSON, wavelength switched optical networks. These are WDM, wavelength division multiplex networks, featuring switches called ROADMs. Reconfigurable optical add-drop multiplexers. We're talking the plumbing underneath the internet. Okay, this is how we get all that bandwidth that everybody needs. Okay, so nice way to deal with. Ooh, I misspelled telecommunications. Nice way to deal with acronyms for your poor readers who. Okay, you can even write a little script that would go and substitute every time you had a. Right, you can do a little find and replace thing that every place you used an acronym, you can go and put this abbreviation around it, or substitute a full definition. So anytime they got confused and lost, they could just see what it was. Okay, nice thing to do. What else do we have in here? Subscripts and superscripts. You know, like when you say the 7th of April, the TH is above, okay? Or if you specify the chemical formula for water, the 2 is down. You use the subscript on the 2. We can do that? Yeah. Let's try it, see if it works. Copy. Here we say, if you say the 7 sup for superscript, TH, end of sup, okay? And here we use sub for subscript, right here, okay? Let's see how this would render if we used it. Okay. So we see this nice rendering property. Pretty neat, eh? Okay. I think that's pretty neat at least. Subscript on the 2. Okay. Self-explanatory. Okay. But it works. Send message. Okay. About quotes. All right. Oh, this is one of the newer ones with HTML5, and I love it. Too many details. Seriously? That's got to be one of those advanced things. No, it is super easy to use. Before we had to go use accordions, and that required CSS stuff and JavaScript. They decided that this was such a common thing that people wanted to do that they made an HTML element for it. It's the details element. It contains details. Okay, so what does it have? Details. Summary is what shows up when it's not open. The rest of the content in here, which can be quite large, okay, is the stuff that shows up when you open it. Let's see how this works in CSource. Okay, in our little app. Oh, wow. It works here. Look at that. Is that nice? Maybe it looks even better. A bunch of details. Okay, people don't need to see it and they want it. Simple HTML, though. We don't have to use any advanced elements otherwise. This was great for saving space. It's great for things like that. I'm sure we'll find a place that'll be convenient to put that on our web pages. Okay, it's great also if you're doing things for small devices. Okay, code. There's a bunch of things for helping with code. Okay, code for marking up generic pieces of computer code to let people know it's code. Pre for marking up pieces of fixed width text. Okay, meaning like monospace text where we want it to preserve the white space, right? HTML does strange things to white space. Okay, it gets rid of a lot of excess white space. Var for specifically marking up variable names. What else do we have? We have things for like marking up keyboard input, sample for marking up the output of a computer program. So we got a lot of stuff, okay? In practice, people really use pre and code and then a JavaScript-based index highlighter. In practice, we do less than that. In practice, what do? So here is some code that we're going to be exploring about week 7. This is for server-side JavaScript. Okay, so this is some JavaScript, and this is running Node.js. Why am I doing this? Because I just want to show an example. Okay, so if I take this, go over to comment mark. Well, I actually already did this already. I'm going to get rid of this block quote stuff here. The reason why I'm coming here is because, so I've already cut and pasted this in. We see how it gets rendered. No syntax highlighting. That's an extra feature. Okay, let's take a look at what the raw HTML looks like. Oh, it says pre to preserve white space. So anytime I have an extra line in here, it's going to, blank line, it's going to preserve that. HTML throws those away. Okay. Oh, then I have code. Oh, and look at this. It gives it a class language-JavaScript. Okay, that's all it does. That's what the Markdown thing does. Oh, my gosh, what else did it do? Oh, every place I have a less than or greater than sign, it substitutes the character reference. Otherwise, we would have to do that. Oh, that was so painful. That's why we never actually usually use the code blocks directly in HTML, because it's so much easier to let the Markdown converter do it for us. But we see it doesn't actually do anything for variables and such like that. Well, let's take this. I mean, as far as it doesn't use the thing for variables, how do we get the nice syntax highlighting? Okay, let's go to CSource. Send that message. I know I'm using, oh, wow, look at the nice syntax highlighting. How does this happen? There's a way to find out. Control-Shift-I. I'm going to scroll down, but not scroll down there. Scroll down here. Select my selector thingy. Let's take a look at this code block. Pre. Oh, that's right. I'm using that Prism.js library. It looked and saw in here that there was a Markdown code block with the language JavaScript. So it saw that. Okay. Code class language JavaScript. It processed everything and added what? It started adding in extra, what span? Oh, span is for what? Unsemantic markup. we give spans meaning maybe by adding classes to them. It's saying that this const thing up here is a JavaScript token and it's a keyword. Okay? So guess what? They've got a style sheet that applies styles based on whether it's a token or it's a keyword. They've got styles. Notice what this is for the equal sign up there. They got styling based on it's a token, it's an operator, function calls, etc., etc. This is what they do. They went, found the code sitting on the web page, processed it, replaced it with this process version in the DOM. They don't modify the page, okay, the raw page. They modify it in the DOM, okay, and then they replace it with these spans. Notice almost everything gets multiple classes to do this kind of thing, okay. Very nice. So that's what they do. And then they have a style sheet, a bunch of different style sheets. Who are these people again? Let me just remind you. Prism.js. Okay. It's JavaScript that does the syntax highlighting. Okay. You just have to give it something in the appropriate form to start. Okay. Which is the code block that's got the right tags in front of it. Okay. They also have lots of different themes. So, dark themes, tomorrow night, solarized light, etc. Okay? All they're doing is coming up with different style sheets that work on what we just saw here, all these spans with classes associated with them. Okay, so you can easily modify one of their style sheets if you want some different type of styling, or you can write your own completely to style things how you'd like. Okay, that's what we do for code. Like I said, I've been using Prism, and Prism was kind enough to work nicely with my app, so line numbers, extra plugin. The copy button, an extra plugin. Okay, there are more things out there. So, what do? Go to